Okay, we are live. Let's go. Garrett Wilson, the second wide receiver off the board. We are getting these guys back to back now. And here with Garrett Wilson, he was our wide receiver 2 in this class. We had London as 1. Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 2 from a fantasy football perspective. I actually thought, based on Garrett Wilson's deep threat ability, based on Garrett Wilson also having the speed that Drake London doesn't, that the NFL draft would actually prioritize getting Garrett Wilson over Drake London. Surprised that he fell here to the New York Jets, and this will be a perfect complement. Y'all know we were talking about the Jets most likely going out of their way and taking a wide receiver in round 1 here. It was the reason from a fantasy football perspective that I said we needed to be moving on from Elijah Moore. Now, of course, I will say this. Elijah Moore is going to thrive in the slot. I loved Elijah Moore coming out of Ole Miss. With Elijah Moore, this was a wide receiver that checked every single box. He didn't break out his freshman year, but that was because DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Dawson Knox were all on that Ole Miss roster as well. But as soon as they left, Elijah Moore was fantastic. Over 800 receiving yards his sophomore year at Ole Miss. The next best wide receiver didn't have 200. Then he accounted for over 40% of his receiving production in that offense in the SEC on a per-game basis his junior season there. I mean, Elijah Moore checks every single box, and Elijah Moore is going to slide over to the slot. But don't be mistaken. Garrett Wilson's the wide receiver 1 on this team. Garrett Wilson is fantastic. The Jets are absolutely killing this draft. It's going to be a natural complement with Zach Wilson. I'll talk about some of my worries with Zach Wilson near the end of this video. But let me go over real quick and just bring up Garrett Wilson in our wide receiver prospect model. And like I said, he checks every single box. Now, if you look at the production measures from a percentage basis, it's never going to be crazy at Ohio State because this is a wide receiver that had ridiculous competition for targets at Ohio State. I mean, he didn't break out his freshman year, but he broke out his true sophomore season. But you had Chris Olave as a junior in that offense. You had Jameson Williams there as well. Jameson Williams didn't get on the field, which, I mean, really shows how impressive Garrett Wilson is. And you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's actually the wide receiver 1 for the 2023 draft class, all in that team as well. So if we take all that into consideration and we see that you have 34.49% of the passing yards on a per game basis going to Garrett Wilson as a sophomore, this is fantastic. He declares early for the NFL draft. And as we've already said, what we need to contextualize is that production with the other players in that offense. So if we take into account that you have 3 other wide receivers from that 2020 season on Ohio State that are going to go as first round draft picks in the NFL. Now, we haven't seen it yet. I can almost guarantee you Garrett Wilson's, not going to be the only guy. It's going to be Jameson Williams in the first. You're also going to get Chris Olave in the first round this year's draft. Of course, I'm not acting like I'm some genius saying that. Everybody knows that. And to see Garrett Wilson get on the field and command targets alongside Chris Olave his sophomore year, that's fantastic. Now, his junior season, the raw numbers went up a little bit, but that was because CJ Stroud at Ohio State was unbelievable. Of course, he had the best supporting cast you could ever dream of. Garrett Wilson wasn't the wide receiver 1. Jackson Smith-Njigba actually was on that team. Now, please don't be too worried about that, however, because Jackson Smith is going to be the wide receiver 1 in the 2023 draft class. He looks like he may be as good of a prospect as what you had with someone like Jamar Chase. Like, he literally looks like he's the next Jamar Chase. He looks fantastic. So just because Garrett Wilson was never the wide receiver 1 in college, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be that at the NFL level. I am expecting Garrett Wilson to be the wide receiver 1 in New York. I would be drafting Garrett Wilson as the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty and in redraft. I mean, if we go over, check out Underdog ADP. I'm going to be bringing this up all night because Underdog just announced that they have a $10 million fantasy football contest this offseason. $25 buy-in fantasy football draft tournament, $10 million prize pool. Unbelievable. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they'll match your deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You'll get our Dynasty research book. You'll get our Dynasty rankings. You'll get our Dynasty rookie rankings as well. Please take advantage of that. You can find the link in the description and in the comment section. But Garrett Wilson being drafted as the wide receiver 40, currently behind Kadarius Toney, Tyler Lockett, Hunter Renfrow, Adam Thielen, and Brandon Ayuk. I honestly would probably take him over all those wide receivers. I would say for 2022, I expect Elijah Moore to most likely be the top wide receiver on this team. Elijah Moore sliding over to the slot. But beyond then, I'm going to be expecting that with Garrett Wilson. He probably takes over as the wide receiver 1 in New York. I am worried about, I hate to say this. I hate to say it. I am worried about Zach Wilson. However, because if you're looking at Zach Wilson, this is a quarterback that from a adjusted yards per attempt basis, if you look at players that had less than 6 adjusted yards per attempt at the quarterback position, their rookie season adjusted yards per attempt takes into account interceptions, touchdowns, passing yards, passing attempts. It takes into account everything. There are a ton of failures on that list. You have guys like Josh Rosen, Dwayne Haskins. I mean, recent failures of round 1 quarterbacks. But I will say, you got someone like Josh Allen. You have someone on the complete opposite end of the spectrum that did break out all over the place. I'm not a big fan of Zach Wilson, but he has no excuses because the Jets just gave him pretty much exactly what he needs. And I'm very excited with this pick. But please make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video. Looks like Chris Olave just got drafted, so we'll be live just 1 second. Let me get that set